Welcome to Maths Bridge. Let's learn Java programming. Folks, please do visit us at our YouTube channel Maths Bridge. I think you are already subscribed to the channel. If you have not, please do subscribe the channel and then support us. Thank you and then happy learning. Here is our today's agenda. In today's session, we are going to look at how control statements helps you to write a software programming, right? So we know programming, right? Before programming, let me recap of like an algorithm. Algorithm is what? For solving a problem, you may, build some sort of a sequential steps. How you're going to solve the problem is what, right? So sequential steps to solve the problem is what you mean by algorithm. Now, how you're going to implement this algorithm you can implement in any language that pick your interest, your wish. Let's say for our cases, like you are trying to implement the algorithm in Java programming. Okay, Java as a language, programming language that you pick as Java. Okay, so when I say these sequential steps to accomplish your task, right? So something that I am simulating in your case to understand concept clear. Okay, let's say like the program should be in an entry point and exit point. In middle that you do some kind of actions. Action 1, action 2, action 3. Action 1 in general term, but programmatically you look at this is translating into in a group of statements, a bunch of statements, right? More than one statement, let's say one statement, or it can be like more than one statement. You can visualize that way, right? So I do like a group of statements executed in the action 1. Now move to the action 2. Now move to the action 3. When action 3 done, you are assuming that you are achieved your goal. Then you exit from the program. Agree? So sequence program or sequence structure basically is known as a linear programming. All statements in the program are executed sequentially until the sequence reaches the last statement. Program terminates upon last statement execution done. This is what actually sequence of steps. In real-time scenario, do you think like every problem can be solved by writing some sort of a sequential steps? Answer would be no. But there may be a cases where you have to do like a different route to accomplish the task, which we are going to look at in control systems, control statements. Okay, let's look at a sample program. So here I'm trying to add two numbers. What is your thought process? When you're adding it to, when you wanted to add a two numbers, you require a two numbers as input. The result you require one more placeholder to save it, isn't it? So typically you require like a three different, placeholders. So what type of value that you are going to store? Maybe I'm thinking of like storing an integer value because I'm taking an integer. So all are integer. So what I do in programmatically, I declare the three variables of type int and assign two values to two variables, and then third one would be act like a result. So you will just compute the two numbers, and the summing of two numbers is what you do here, and assigning the result into a sum, and then you print the sum here, right? So you see this one, this is very sequential, right? Step by step process. So if you could actually run this program, it just produces that output, because there is completely a sequence of operations to accomplish a task. This is one example for sequential statements. Okay, let's take a second one quickly. Assuming that you are trying to actually calculate the what you can call it as a simple interest for a given balance, right? So fundamentally like what you're going to do that, right? All you require is like the formula how to calculate a simple interest, that is called PTR by 100. So you have a balance, you have interest, you have a time period, then slice by 100 equal to your interest. So interest plus balance is like your total. in a way, right? So, but the thing is like, what is input that is required? You require a balance, how much you have, and what is the kind of interest that you are calculating, how much time period that you are considering, right? Now, so these are kind of inputs that you needed. So assuming that these are user is going to supply, for now I'm just using like a hard code values to it. So now if you can just compile this code, it's compiled anyway in the Java. So let me run this one. What happens? You got this, right? Balance I know. Now I know interest because of from the given 3 input parameters. So in the third line, what I'm doing is like balance plus interest over calculator. That's a total my balance now after interest calculation for this period. So this is again a sequential steps. You agree? Because sequential steps, right? Step by step process to accomplish my task is what I did. So this is kind of a linear programming meaning in a way. Branching means changing flow of execution, alter the flow of execution of a program, right? Using if statement. Look at this flow chart. Assume that you have a action 1 and action 2. Action 1 means like a sequence of statements. Action 2 also having a sequence of statements. This would have been like a one after another kind of an execution in the sequential statement execution, linear programming. But in our case, it's like a branching. Means you are introducing a one more level called a condition, right? Boolean expression. Based out of the condition, you can decide whether you need to execute action 1 statements, yes or no kind of. So if the condition is true, then you will include action 1 statements, or you can skip the action 1 statements. That's called the true and false meaning, right? Upon exit from this branch, then next following set of statements in action 2 should be executed. This is what it is for now, right? So this condition is nothing but what a program state. A state of the program will be known by this condition, with which you make a decision. Should I go to this path and execute this, or should I directly go to the action 2? Okay, how we are going to achieve programmatically to achieve this functionality? You have to use keyword called if statement begin with a reserved keyword if. This is nothing but a condition. Condition is a Boolean expression that determines whether or not a body will be executed. This body is called a if block, right? Action 1 is a part of if block, right? See, this is kind of a syntax. If condition statements, right? This block of statements will be executed only if this condition is true. Got it? Through with a sample programs to demonstrating if statement. If you look at my screen, so what you can see is like you have a sequential statements to execute the program, right? But there is a small a snippet where you are actually using a branch statement, a control statement. What this basically aim is that introducing how you are going to calculate a max for a given numbers. I have two numbers, num1 and num2 got initialized to 30 and 20, and I created one more variable to actually act like a placeholder for storing the result value. So what I do is like I'm not using like a big mechanism or logic here. We are simply a brute force method wherein I am assuming like a given one of the number is like a max number. So by default, so max is called num1 is what I'm assuming. So then what I would do, I will actually make sure I will compare num1 with num2. Let's say for instance my logic says like num1 less than num2. If the num1 less than num2, then num2 would be a max, right? And then max is equal num2 is a generic rule that I added. Basically this is actually branch statement, right? So I'm gonna decide based out of the state whether I can include this or skip this. That's an idea, right? And otherwise, like once this block is done, the following statements would be executing as part of my program flow. Agree? So this is what it is, right? If I would run this program, it gives me like a result. You see what happens? You got 30. So num1 is 30, num2 is 20. So by default I assume it like a num1 is 30. But here in this case like a 30 less than 20. Is it right or wrong? So the Boolean expression evaluated to the false. if the state is false, that means the condition is false, then you skip this block and hence you are not executing this block in this case. If I would say this is 10, let's say, that case you see 10 less than 20, that means like I am supposed to execute 17 to get the max number. So what I would do, like if I run this program again now, what you see is like a 20, right? This means like this time I included this. So this is how you see alter the program sequence of execution can be altered by if statements, right? And hence these are called the control statements. So you can look at the one more example, wherein I'm calculating a simple principal interest, but I'm introducing a one more condition called age, handling like a senior citizens. If the age is greater than 60, then I'm using like my interest rate is 9, otherwise this would have been like a default 8.5. So based out of the input age, I could now think of like, should I include this line, this block of statements, yes or no, kind of, right? So it's again the same thing. If you run this program, you see by looking at this, I think now my age is 70 and hence my interest is becomes like a 9.0 instead of like 8.5. So calculated based out of the interest, and then this is what my computed output values, right? If I would say like this is something like a 50, then I would see 8.5 is my interest rate, so my calculations accordingly will change. So let's run this program and then see with that change, right? So this is how your so look at now. So your if block works like that way. You are branching, either you are going to include or exclude based out of the condition, right? Condition is nothing but a Boolean expression. It's also called the state of the the program at this case. So this is how if block works. Branching using if else statement. Look at a flowchart now. So based out a condition, I have to decide whether I need to include action 1 or action 2 statements, right? That's a goal, right? If the condition is a Boolean expression, right? The Boolean value. Based out of this value, this is also called a state of the program. Based out of this value, if it is true, I am going to include action 1 and then skip action 2. If this condition is false, then I am going to include action 2 and then skip the action 1. Once this part is done, then the next set of actions, whatever we have, following actions are action 3. All these statements within the action 3 will be executed. So this is what we say if else statement. This is like a syntax for if else. If condition is true, all the statements within this block, if block, will be executed, or else block will be executed. Get it? So if else are the keywords. You could see like if else in your statement. The condition is a Boolean expression that determines whether or not if block or else block will be executed. Block is one or more statements to be executed. Block means like it can be like one statement, it can be like a more than one statement. All right, this is the concept of like on a branching with if else statements. The sample program now. So the previous program, but made it to use if else statements. If you look at how you are going to find a max value using if else statement, what I did is that rather than assuming here the max value, now I am including if else statement. If num1 is less than num2, then max is like a num2, else max is equal to num1. So now I have if block and else block. Based out of the condition, either I am going to include line number 15 or line number 17. So both should not be a part of your execution at any given point of time. Either one of them will be chosen. That is what my altering the program using if else statement, right? So similarly, you could see like other sample program that we see as an interest rate. Here are the same case. Instead of actually setting a the default value is to 8.5, now I made it like a 0. Within the if, I am just considering if age is greater than 60, that means like a senior citizen, so for which I am considering interest rate 9.0. For all other cases, I am using like 8.5. Based out of this selection, I am just computing my interest and then displaying that. If you can actually print this, what you get this, right? If I can choose this is like a 60, then what I have 60, maybe put 70, then I would go for like an interest rate 9.0 instead of 8.5. So if you run this program, then I could see 9, this is the value. Get it? So I don't know whether I ran this one or not, but you just like ran this again, right? This is 20 by default. Let me put this is 30. Then I should expect 30 as an output, right? Great. Now let's look at case called nested if else. We have seen if else, but can we have like a multiple if else statements within your program? The answer is yes, because we have the use cases something where we need like a nested if for sure. So think of this is the best example that I ever seen. I loved it actually. This is one of the standard book from which I borrowed. Think about like you are at house and you are checking whether you have a power in this house. Okay, and upon entry that you're checking has a power in house. If the power is there in this house, then you're good. So if the condition is yes, then you go and exit the program. You don't require to do anything. If no, then you have to debug the system, right? You are debugging what is that issue that you have, so that you need to fix it, right? If is the case no, then you are coming to here. Now you are checking whether the is plugged in, the power is plugged in or not, just you are checking, right? If it is no, then you go and plug it, right? If you don't plug that, you don't get a power anyway, right? So that is a kind of a solution. But you, even if you plugged in but still you didn't get a power, then if this condition is yes, then you have to go and see is switch is on or off, correct? No, so is switch on? If switch is not on, then okay, great. You finding is no, then you switch on, then automatically you should get a power. But if the switch is on but still you don't get the power, you right, then you have to do like one more check. What that case is case is fuse okay, right? Within house you have fuse, right? The power front end circuitry has a fuse. You see whether it's like blown out or is working. So if the fuse is not okay, then what you do, you check the fuse and then replace it, right? If fuse is there but still you don't have see this power, then what you have to do, if this condition yes, then you have to go and actually seek the electrician help, then exit the program. Do you see the case? But how many if else's we used within the program? This is known as a nested if else case, right? So that means like in the real time scenario, you end up using an if else statement, nested if else statements in your program. Okay, so let's look at now a sample program which demonstrated the nested if else statements. So I'm taking that example one where I have a 3 numbers, I'm finding a max of number. What I will do quickly, I will run this program, since we already detailed walkthrough done in the previous example. So between 10, 20, 30, the max value is 30. You agree? Let's change this value to the 40. Num1 is a 40. Then you should expect a 40, right? Let's see this output is really generating it or not. So let me run this one again. Great. Now I got a 42. So what I will do, like I will make this as a 50, middle one. So I supposed to get a 50 now as a max value bit among 3. Right? Let me run this that 2. Do you see? So that means like how did I actually achieve this one? Using nested if else statements. What I did see, within the if I have one more if else block, within the else I have another if else block. So nested if is really useful, because this is important. If you look at now in this case, if the num1 is greater than num2, right? If the num1 is greater than num1 should compare with the num3. When comparing, then I decide like whether I should go for num1 as a max and num3 as max. If this if condition itself is like a false, then what happened? I would go to the else block. Within the else block, what I see now, the num2 should compare with like a num3, num2 with num3 to decide what would be the max between two, and then accordingly I will print at the last, right? That's all. Okay, let's look at now the other example. Similarly in this case now. Okay, so what I'm thinking, so this is like a simple interest calculation, right? Initially we have looked at a simple interest, then we introduced one more word called ACE. For the senior citizen you have to calculate like a different mechanism. Now we introduced like one more case. Okay, within the senior citizen, if the female, then your interest is bit high than the male. So if within the if you are using like one more if else statement, else would be the same, right? This is then a best example for even if else statement. Let me quickly run this program and then see that output, right? Based out of the condition, if what is my age 50 and gender is young, so age 50, so age 50 means like this is a age is greater than 16, no, right? Then directly is go to else and then 8.5 based out of this value, and I'm computing rest. That's why I got this value. Let's say I make it like this is a 60. Get it? If it is a 60, then what you see is 60 means like maybe put like a 70. If it is a 70, then what happened? 70 is greater than 60, so condition is true, then getting into inside. But my gender is male, right? Since gender is male, now I am actually using this interest rate. So our calculation should be order of 9. Let me run this program and then see what it comes. Do you see this one? Very nice. Let's put this as F, because I wanted to see that female calculations, right? So I will run this program again. Now you see based on calculation, now so it considers the interest as a 10, so accordingly the computation has been taken care. So now we have this computation. So you do see, so nested if can be implemented for the many cases, but I given you two sample programs which are simply understood. One more branching statement called a switch statement. This is very important, very widely used. This is almost similar to the if else statement, but there is a difference between if else versus like in a switch statement. So main difference you look at, if else statement chooses between two options, right? Greater than, less than, blah blah blah. Now if you look at a switch statement, right, you can choose from multiple options. That's the beauty of switch statement. You might be having a case in the real-time scenarios. So let's look at in the generic view. Based out of the condition, what we're doing is like, if the expression equal to value 1, that's the condition. If the expression equal to value 1, we are not comparing, but you are saying the value. If expression equal to value 1, you are actually doing executing this block 1 statements and exit. If expression equal to value 2, then you are executing blocks 2 statements and then exit. If similarly you how many conditions that you have, those many you can include. By default should also be there in the switch statement. If none of the cases are matched, that means like a no match. No match case is called as a default, and then default block, whatever statements that you include in your program, those will execute and then exit. This is a switch statement works. Okay, syntax for the switch statement is a keyword called switch and expression, and then within which we have the cases value 1 colon and a block of the statements, and end with like a break is a small letter, and here also same case 2 block 2 statements and then break, and so on till the last case is like a default case, where if you don't see the match within the cases for a given expression, then control goes to default, where the default block statements will be executed and then breaks. That's what break means. Break in the sense is like an exit from this switch statement. That's the concept actually. Switch is very simple but very useful. Okay, let's look at a sample program for demonstrating a switch statement. Assuming that like I got a score, and then based out of the score I am trying to declare what is my grade would be, right? So let's say like I have a input marks is like 90, and then I'm calculating index. Index is calculation, this is a formula, 90 by 10 is called 9, right? So you get like 1 2 3 2 till 9 or 0 also, let's say. So based out of the index, how the switch works, based on the index you look for the cases. In our cases, like my index would be 9, right? And hence what would be my case, I will match with my case number 9. So here I am assigning very good to the grade. So grade is very good is what I am declaring, because my score is 90, index is 9, so my output would be 9. So let's run this program and then see you got 9, right? Very good, great. So let's change this one just to understand that I got 40, let's say, and then run this program again. What would be your grade now? is kind of fail case, because what we declare is like the index what we get, when you declare, when you assign 40 to the marks, your index would be 4, and then I don't see any case 10, case 9, case 8, case 7, case 6, case 5, but there is no case called 4, and hence it matches. No match found, then by control goes to the default case. Default case is where I declared a grade is called fail, which is what I printing at line number 38, right? If I would say this is kind of like a 95, let's say 95 would become like what, above 9, right? So I should get very good now. So let me run this program and then see what happens. Very good. So if you say 100, that means like your index is 10. When your index is 10, what you get is outstanding only, right? You save this one and say outstanding, because 10 means case matches like 10 where grade is outstanding. This is how switch statement works. So you have a multiple, instead of like a two value comparison, you have like a multiple options, so that you can choose using the switch statement. That's the advantage of using switch. So practically use like a many switch statements in your program, and then a nested switch also is possible. Switch inside switch. Like a nested if else statement, can we have like a nested switch statement? The answer is yes. If you look at a symbol, the syntax here, within the case one, I could actually use one more switch statement where I can add like all the cases and then default case. This still can be doable. So nest inside nest is fine, but just making sure like you are adding things properly. Otherwise, it's a bit hard to actually debug. But yes, it is possible, and then the programming language supports. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, click on bell icon, and leave the comments. Happy learning. Thank you. Stay tuned to upcoming sessions.